Well, if you're not creating excuses, there's no action, and you're not ready to step up and create change. But this is for you if you're an action taker, which I know all of you are, because guess what? You're spending your Tuesday night with me, so thank you. You deserve better. You're committed. And if you're committed to creating action, I am holding all of you accountable, as you all know, and I want you to type yes on the chat box, that you're going to be held accountable to being more assertive. And I'm starting to see yeses from folks. Awesome. I see exclamation points. That is what I want to see. And so this is what, no more bullshit excuses. Yes. Yes, I love the emojis as well. So what we're going to cover today, it's understanding why speaking your truth is important for your relationships and careers. Second is how to reframe what you are telling yourself. And 3, how to see conflict as an opportunity. And if you stay towards the end, I have a kick-ass 2018 bonus at the end that I want to share with all of you that are attending from around the world, which is awesome. I promise to you that I will give you so much value. You'll understand your 3 breakthroughs of being assertive and how you could implement them now. You'll leave more confident, inspired, and it will definitely change your life and relationships and self-worth. So make sure you have a pen, and paper. Just take notes and put your phone away. I know we're really attached to it. Unless you're using the phone for the webinar, then I completely understand. Just remember, multitasking is the art of doing many things badly. And I am still working on this. My boyfriend calls me out because when I'm on the phone with him, he's like, what are you doing? Are you multitasking? Yes, I am. But just to respect not just my time, but your time and everyone else's time, if you could just make sure you focus on this so you get the most out of this webinar. So what is your intention? What's your goal? What do you want to gain out of this? If you could type in the chat box, like, do you want to be more assertive? Do you want to improve a relationship? Maybe it's with a colleague or with your husband or with a parent. And don't worry, no one else could see what you're going to be typing. It's just me. But there's a magical power of when you start typing things. Oh, all panel attendees could see it. Okay, so just share why you're here. If it's just for you, you just put you. So who am I? I need to be more assertive. I think all of us do. And I know it's really surprising to say this, but it's also something that I'm working on being assertive as well. So I'm a career coach for first-generation millennial women. I've negotiated my salary twice in more than 1 year. I actually ended up, my first raise, I got a $12,000 raise. The second raise I had for that year, when I changed careers, I got another $26K. So within 1 year, I made $38,000 more. I transitioned into a new career not using the black hole of the internet. And even though I share my successes, I will tell you I've had my blessings in disguise. I've been fired 3 times. I've quit twice. I've had 25 different jobs in my life. I've also ended toxic relationships, and I'm talking about not just professionally, but personally, and learning how to create boundaries and say no. So I completely understand how it feels like to be on the other side of it, and it's something that I'm always working towards as well. In the last 7 months, okay, why? To keep myself accountable, motivated in my assertiveness journey. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for sharing. And Marie, I see you want to be assertive for just being a better person for me and others. And I will say, I know all of us ladies, we are so used to always being there for other people, right? Whether it's our parents, a loved one, a child. But when we put ourselves first and we work on ourselves first to the highest good, it's this beautiful impact where you're going to see loved ones who will also own their power. So going back, in the last 7 months, I've worked with paying clients one-on-one within 2 weeks of starting. I'm actually collaborating with global influencers from New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. I'm on the phone till midnight just because of the time difference. And I've been connecting with Fortune 500 companies. Like recently, I just was connecting with Warner Brothers. I've been a featured speaker for 3 national organizations, 1 international organization. I presented to over 120 people, and I've moved to my dream city in Pasadena. I've also attracted an amazing tribe, all of you who are attending tonight, and even manifested an amazing boyfriend, which is awesome. Like, it's just amazing when you start working on yourself, things will start aligning for you, not just professionally, but personally. So why am I qualified? Well, I used to be very passive aggressive. I grew up in a culture where you're not supposed to speak up. You're not supposed to tell someone that you're upset. I didn't have the best relationship with my father growing up. I began into a lot of arguments with him where it got to a point where I would make him cry. And actually just recently, not kidding, this just happened like last year, I had a conversation with him where I was noticing patterns in my life and I was blaming him. But I learned to not just, it's not forgiving him, he didn't do anything bad, but I had to change my perspective and understand what he's gone through as a child. And it's actually strengthened our relationship. Even personally, I've been in toxic relationships, whether it's been a romantic one or even friendships. And I'm never blaming the other individual. It's just the relationship itself. Like, I will say I was crazy when it came with my ex-boyfriend. Like, I always had to be right. And I'm sure a lot of you ladies know that it's not about who's right or wrong. It's how you're going to communicate with your partner or your spouse and asking the questions. I've personally invested $30,000 in my own self-development, and it's my passion just to help others create their dream job and business. So this was just a note from a wonderful client. She was going through a hard time and wanted to work on being assertive. So we were able to go through her life where she said, like, shit happens, but you know what? Life goes on, so thank you. So visualization is so important. So if all of you could just close your eyes, and I'm going to play music in the background. And don't worry, it's going to be quick, and I'll tell you when to open. So close your eyes. And 1 year from now, January 16th or January 17th, I want you to visualize on how you're going to walk into meetings and how you're going to own your power, how it's going to feel like when you answer your phone, how it's going to feel like when you're going to walk into family parties, and more importantly, the feeling when everyone knows you've owned your power, and more importantly, that there's nothing anyone can do or say to take away your power. So with that little meditation, I want to know exactly how that feels to know when you own your power, when you go into meetings, or when you feel like everyone knows that you own your power. How does it feel for a year from now? Because when you associate your feeling, that's going to be awesome. So if you could just type it into the box, amazing. Yes, as it should, because you're owning your power. Okay, but the first 3 secrets to being an assertiveness queen. And no, I'm sorry, I don't have crowns for all of you. So it goes back, I know I've done this with my other challenges, but what's your why? Like, why do you want to be assertive? And this is a picture of both my mom and my dad. And I want you to take a moment. What is your why? And where will you post a picture of your why to remind yourself? So if you, Maria, I know you just wrote, I can see it. I'm so close to my goals. So write down in the chat box, so what's your why and where you're going to post it, because it's really important for me that I hold all of you accountable that you will do this. I know a lot of you before have written, like, it's about your parents, it's about your kids, it's about your family. Like, what is your why? Why do you want to be assertive? Okay, so the second thing is conflicts are opportunities. Perception is everything. And communication, okay, Tarina, I know you wrote, I like believing in myself even if no one else does, because it makes accomplishing my goals that much better. Yes, like self-doubt creeps up, and it's really important to understand why you want to do what you're doing. So going back to seeing how conflict are opportunities, perception's everything, and communication is what others understand, not what we say. And we get to learn more about ourselves, loved ones, and colleagues, and you listen with commitment and actively listen. But here's the reality. It's all of us grew up differently. I know I've mentioned this on a couple of my Facebook lives. I mean, even if we have siblings or cousins, we grew up differently. I mean, sure, we have the same parents, but you have to understand we grew up with a different class or a different specific year. So how we perceive things are different. And so these are 4 word-to-word scripts that I have personally used. And I want to go through each one and talk about why it's important to talk about this stuff. And like I remember what I said earlier, when you're talking to a loved one, a colleague, or a friend, it's not about who's right or wrong. Just keep in mind that the relationship is more important than who's right or wrong. So number 1, I love you. Can you help me understand what I might be saying that frustrates you? This is perfect to use, especially for those who have partners or maybe a parent. Because when you say I love you in the beginning, you're reminding them that the relationship is more important and you love them enough to have this very difficult conversation with them. So that's what number 1 could be used for. Number 2, I want to respect your time. What do we need to get done before you leave? So this is a great sentence to use, especially at meetings or at work. I use this whenever I talk to a boss. So I let her or him know, I want to respect your time. What do you need from me before you leave? And then you're just summing up. And something I didn't add to number 2 is, so what I hear you saying is, I need to do A, B, and C. So what you're letting them know is that you were listening to them by saying, I hear you. And then you're listing everything that you've heard. And then after that, you're asking the question, is there anything else I'm missing? So the statement once again is, I hear you. I hear you're telling me that I need to do A, B, and C. Is there anything else I'm missing? The third statement is, what would you like me to do differently? So this is especially when you're having a difficult conversation with a loved one. And asking them, what would you like me to do differently? Number 4, is there something I should understand about you? Because as all of you know, there's things from our past that might be triggered in a new relationship. And I'm not talking about a romantic relationship, but it could be even a friendship, right? That could trigger it for you. So it's asking the question, is there something that I should understand about you? For example, I know a lot of you have partners or boyfriends, husbands, like, well, it's really important for me that you put all your clothes away or that you wash the dishes right away. So like I said, to hold all of you accountable, which statement will you use? Number 1, 2, 3, or 4? And as all of you are typing it, I'm going to read some statements. Maria, I know you said assertive for me and my goals to be my career, and I will post it on Facebook. Awesome. Aisha, I know you talked about what would you like me to do differently? Perfect. Audrey, you talked about, is there something I should understand about you? And then Christine, you talked about, I want to respect your time. What do we need done before you leave? And Alyssa, you talked about number 1, I love you. Can you help me understand? Another thing I want to mention with these statements is it's not just using the word-to-word statements. It's also how you say it, right? I mean, communication is 80% non-verbal. Oh, Dekanye, I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly, so I apologize. I know number 2, I want to respect your time. What do we need done before you leave? Anne-Marie, so funny. I used 1, 2, and 4 in a conversation with my boyfriend last night. Okay, Anne-Marie, how'd that work? I take it it's well because you guys are not broken up, right? And Aisha, true. So going back to using these statements, with these statements, just make sure that you're not defensive and you're saying it very slowly. Because let's go, for example, number 1, I love you, but can you just help me understand what I'm saying that frustrates you? So if you notice, the tone is very defensive and attacking. So remember the challenge where I talked about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? So make sure you do that, especially when you know you're about to have a difficult conversation, to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, breathe, and say the statement very slowly. I love you. Can you help me understand what I might be saying that frustrates you? See, do you notice the tone? So it's not just saying these statements, it's exactly how you're going to say it. Anne-Marie, LOL, it was a really difficult conversation. These statements came organically, all out of love and for relationship. It helped. So that's another thing, is before having these difficult conversations with our loved ones or our colleagues, remind yourself why. Like, I know I asked about why, bigger picture, in terms of why you want to be assertive. It might be for your family. But if it's a specific relationship like a spouse or it's a boss, what's your why? So maybe a relationship with your boss, it's because you want to get promoted. And that's why it's important for you to be open and direct with your boss. For your partner, maybe it's because he is your husband and you want to have a great relationship. So it's important to have this open communication. So even though it feels really icky to have these conversations, just ask yourself, what's your why? Well, because you love him, or I want to get a promotion, I want to excel in my career. And it'll just make it easier for you to step forward to do it. So awesome, ladies. I am glad these statements are working. Okay, number 3, be brave and ask for help. You are not a burden if you're asking for help. You're a burden if you are complaining. So the reason why I say that is because I'm pretty sure all of you could relate to me when, as a woman, when a friend, a partner, a loved one calls us at 2 in the morning, you'll be there for them. And if anyone would ask us for help or guidance, we're going to be there right away and drop everything. But then when it comes to us asking for help, we don't want to ask, because if it's a burden, can anyone relate to that? If you can, just type in yes to the box. I know that's difficult for me. Yes, Aisha. Audrey, yes. Maria, yes. Okay. All us, Anne-Marie, yes. So all of us could relate that we'll always be there for other people. But when it comes to ourselves, we're so scared to ask. But this is a perspective and paradigm shift. Just ask, and how you could change the paradigm shift is when you're asking for help, know it's coming from a solutions area, right? I mean, here's another question. I want all of you to say yes or no. How many of you have that one girlfriend, you know who I'm talking about, where a year, 6 months, however long, they're complaining about that same job or that same relationship they hate? How many, like, if you could, yes, girl. Christine, okay. You know who I'm talking about. That one girl that's texting you is like, girl, I need to go meet up with you for a drink because I'm still in this horrible relationship. Alyssa, yes. So that's the burden. If you are that person where you're going to someone, but you're complaining about the same thing. And here's the thing. I know all of you that are in this webinar right now, you're not there. And remind yourself that, no, I actually am seeking a solution. So for example, when I wanted to lose 20 pounds, this was 2 years ago, I wasn't just complaining to my friends like, oh God, I will never lose 5 or 10 pounds. Instead, I went to my friends who I saw lost weight, like, hey, how'd you do it? Or, you know, I would go on Instagram, like, how did you make that cauliflower fried rice? Or where did you get those cute leggings? So do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not complaining about how I am not losing another 5 pounds. I'm actually going to people for advice, asking for solutions. So keep that in mind. Be brave and ask for help, and know you're asking for solutions so you're not a burden. So these are questions you could ask again at work or your loved ones. So let's go with number 1. Can you help me understand why this is important to you? This is such a great question to ask because you will learn things from their past where, like, oh, that's why it's so important to you. And it will deepen the relationship. Number 2 is I value our relationship more than being right. I talked about this earlier. So please help me understand this. So you're reminding them that the relationship is more important and you want to really understand it. Okay, number 3, how can I do this so it will work? So you're asking, what can you do right now to make it work? And number 4, what did I do to make you feel that way? You know when a friend or a partner, it's like, oh, you have to do it again. You're like, what are you talking about? So it's really important to ask, what did I do to make you feel that way? So once again, holding all of you accountable, can you type in the box what statement you're going to use? Because that's really important to me. Number 3, Audrey, how can I do this so it will work? That's awesome. And then what are the questions? Number 1, Aisha, can you help me understand why this is important to you? Anything else, ladies? Number 2 and 3, I value our relationship more than being right, and how can I do this so it will work? Number 2 and 3, again, I value our relationship, and how can I do this so it will work? So if you notice in both this slide and the other slide, it's about asking questions consistently and having the conversation so you could best understand one another. So I will share a story, and I can't wait to share this story because this actually recently happened, and I think it's really important so that you know that how assertiveness is an ongoing process for all of us. But when I started my business, my parents were just freaking out, concerned. And by the way, I'm going full-time. I'm actually full-time into my business now, so leaving my job. And they just had a lot of concerns like, well, how are you going to make sure you get healthcare or you're going to have consistency, blah, blah, blah. They were just all worried about that. So I actually drove to their home and I asked them questions like, what's your concerns? And I'm just scared that you're just trying to be famous. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to be famous. And mind you, the person it was before, I was very defensive, like, I'm not trying to be famous. I'm not trying to do this. It was like I went back to my 5-year-old self rather than really be assertive about it. And this conversation happened on Sunday. And then I continued to ask my parents, well, I know you sacrificed so much, but because both my parents didn't go to college and they didn't necessarily have their dream job, I asked both of them, what did you always wanted to be when you grew up? Because I know you couldn't. I know you had to tend to myself and my brothers, but what did you want to be? And my dad said, well, I've always wanted to be doing agriculture. And my mom said, being an accountant. And I told them, thank you for all the sacrifices you made. And I know you can be that. And that's why it's so important for me to go after my dreams. Because you sacrificed so much that I want to be able to have this luxury of choice. And so I will say we were just all crying. But what it did was it gave us a level of understanding. And I'm not saying I was right for doing something or they were right for not going after dreams of being in agriculture or in accounting. It just gave us this level of understanding and mutual respect where it just deepened our relationship with one another. So I just want to remind you, it's something that I also work on and I'm mindful of. And these are tips that I consistently do in my personal life as well. So this other quote is, be responsible for the energy you bring. And the reason why I don't bring it up is, I'm pretty sure all of you are mindful of this, but you know when there's parties you go to and you're not excited? And if this is a yes to you, say yes. Like, seeing a group of friends, you're like, oh, I don't want to see them. And so what ends up happening? When you see those group of friends, you're not going to enjoy it, right? But be responsible for the energy you bring. So let's say you have a meeting, making sure that you're going to be present. When you are with a spouse, your kids, or parents. So just be mindful of the energy you bring because it will dictate exactly how it's going to be for that moment in time. So these are resources that I want to mention. So Resolving Conflicts at Work by Kenneth Cloak and Joan Goldsmith. This is actually an amazing, it's my favorite book out of all three. It was actually a textbook that I learned about in grad school, and it provided word-to-word scripts on what I could say at work. But even though it was geared more towards work, you could also use in your personal relationships. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson is also a really great book too, in terms of giving you different scenarios of different conversations you might have with a loved one or work. And then Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud is another great book, just setting those boundaries so that you could spend time with your friends, your loved ones, how to say no without, saying no. So I didn't put this in the script, but I want to share this. So let's say someone's invited you to an event, and reality is you had a hard time at work for the whole week. So what you could do is, thank you for inviting me, while at the same time I can't make it, right? Because you already know that you're going to be tired and grouchy. And what I've learned when it comes to boundaries, don't feel guilty based on what other people might be perceiving. Like, keep in mind that you're actually doing them a disservice if you're not excited to go. Does that make sense? You're actually being a better friend when you don't go because your energy level is not there. Aisha, this is so true. So just be mindful of that. Like, if you care about the relationship enough, be strong enough to say either yes or no, and you never have to give excuses to people as well. Okay, so my gift to you, which is a value of $250, is I want to give back. So every single one of you that attended this session, I want to be able to go over a 30-minute kick-ass strategy session of breakthroughs and a plan so that you could be successful for 2018. And so after this, I actually have a 1-hour break before my next call, but I'll personally message you and you could figure out a time to connect. And these are amazing assertiveness queens who took action. The one on the left, like, it was a client of mine who worked on being assertive and looking for a dream job, and we've been working already for 3 sessions, so she's been able to do that. And so, like I said, it's really important for me for all of you to be held accountable, and you're going to be doing something. So out of all 5, what are you going to do? If you could type in the chat box, are you going to post a picture of your why and put it on your phone or computer? Or number 2, are you going to change your perspective that conflicts are opportunities rather than something negative? Number 3, are you going to be brave and ask questions? Number 4, are you going to book a free kick-ass strategy session with me? Or number 5, are you going to be just, an amazing overachiever and you're going to do all of it? So just type in the chat box so that I could hold you all accountable. Okay, Maria, I see 5. Everyone else, what are you going to put? Okay, Christine, 1, 2, and 3. Trina, number 2, change perspective that conflicts are opportunities. Dakani, 2 and 3. Alyssa, 1, 2, and 3. Awesome. And then Audrey, 2 and 3. Aisha, 2 and 3. Perfect. Okay, so I want to make sure you're going to implement all of this. And let's see. If you have any questions, let me know and I can answer it. You could just type it in the box. But I will answer this, Anne-Marie, 1, 2, and 3. Awesome. So I will answer this question because I got from the last session, was what happens when you have a direct conversation with someone and they're not going to change and you're going to use all the techniques you can. So this is a difficult question because let's say it's a loved one, that especially a family member, and they're not being receptive. So my answer to that is boundaries. That's the answer to that. That even though you could be direct, even though you want to be direct and ask for feedback, it has to do with boundaries and learning what you can say or can't say to them, especially when you're creating change in your life and being a lot more assertive. So learning how to set those boundaries. Okay, I can't talk to this person about this thing, so I'll talk about other things right? And the latter is if they're not respecting you and not giving you the respect you deserve, you need to ask yourself, like, is this a relationship worth keeping? Now, am I saying that it's a relationship worth keeping and you're just going to cut off the ties? That's not what I'm saying, but keep in mind what type of friendship it is, right? Like for me, I realize that there's some friends who I've known forever that I necessarily can't share all my dreams with them because they don't understand. And I also know that the feedback they're going to give me is going to be negative because of the limiting beliefs they have. That doesn't mean that I'm cutting them off. It's just I know I can't have these conversations with them. So being mindful of that. And if there's any other questions, let me know. And I will end it. Okay, Anne-Marie, I see 1, 2, and 3. So I will end it with this quote. Vibe so high that toxic people in your life will disappear because they no longer know how to approach you. And the reason why I wanted to end with this quote is because when you own your power, people will know. And I want to remind you, Aisha, love it. Audrey, whoa, quote of 2018 right there. Okay, write it down. So when you own your power and when you decide to make that shift, I want to remind you that it doesn't take overnight. So for example, people say they want to lose 5 pounds. It's not going to take one night. It's going to be a process. And you know, the marketing rule is that it takes 7 times for someone to really hear the message that you've changed and that you're going to be doing this. And so, for example, I remember talking to a client last night and we were talking about how to create boundaries with gossip. And the statement for that, so if you want to write this down, is, you know, thank you for trusting me about talking about Joe. While at the same time, I have a deadline and I'd love to answer any questions you have if there was a solutions perspective to it. So what I did right there was thank you, gave them a compliment, while at the same time I have a deadline. So you're protecting your time. And I would love to continue talking about it if there's a solution. So letting them know, hey, I'll talk to you about it if you're going to do something about it, right? But even though that statement can be said once, unfortunately, you have to consistently say it again and again. It's like for any mothers that is in this chat room, like you're going to have to consistently say a statement, but don't be upset about it. Just know that it takes a while for humans, all humans, regardless of age, to actually listen to it. So that is the end of the session, and I will personally message all of you. I want to say thank you so much. I really want to make sure you apply everything you've learned tonight now in the present moment, and I encourage all of you to also journal as well. Aisha, thank you so much, Elaine. No, thank you, ladies, for showing up. So I will thank you for Maria. Okay, I will message all of you. Have a great evening and feel free. Christine, thank you, Elaine. You're amazing. Feel free to message me. And also, if you could just, you know, I want all of you, if you can do this, this would be really great on the Facebook group. Just write up a post and just say thank you to all the other girls, because as you know, for me, it's all about community over competition. And congratulations on investing in yourself and spending time with me. This was a wonderful date night, I guess. No, thank you so much, Akanya. All right. Good night, ladies. And I will see you on the Facebook group. Bye.